So in a fight that no one asked for, Jake Paul will rematch Tyron Woodley. Before we get into the video, please like and subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. I was actually very hyped up for the Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury fight, because I knew we were going to see Tommy Fury get knocked out, and I just want to see the PR control from Team Fury, because Tyson Fury already let the blueprint know. Because Tommy Fury is no Tyson Fury, man. Look, we might criticize Tyson Fury, but we only criticize him is because he's in the conversation for greatness. We want to criticize him because we hate him. I don't hate any fighter. I critique a fighter because I expect more from that fighter. I hold him to a high standard. But Tommy Fury is no Tyson Fury. He doesn't have the skills, in my opinion. And the light heavyweight division and all the other divisions other than heavyweight, you don't have all the years that they do in heavyweight to get your shit together. Like in the heavyweight division, Vladimir Klitschko, when he went on his second reign that lasted for a decade, he was 30 years old. And the weight classes below that, you're usually a gatekeeper by the time you're 30 years old, 33 years old. We're not all Bernard Hopkins, Adonis Stevenson, who could have in their late 30s to their 40s runs at light heavyweight and below that. No, most fighters are like a Sergey Kovalev, who was a phenomenal fighter in his late 20s, early 30s, but when he got to his mid-30s, late 30s, he was a gatekeeper. He was being fed to Anthony Yard, Canelo Alvarez. They want to even feed him to Bekimir Belakuziev. So Tommy Fury, I thought Jake Paul was going to knock him out. Jake Paul, he has more one-punch power than Tommy. Tommy has yet to show us any power. He looks horrible against Anthony Taylor. He's yet to fight a single 8-round fight, where we've seen Jake Paul in an 8-round fight before. So I was expecting Jake Paul to blast Tommy Fury out. Maybe late, because I think that Jake Paul, he's been through the gears against Tyron Woodley. That was a good test for him. And they took a huge step up from Ben Askren, a guy who's not really a good boxer. Doesn't know how to box. He's a wrestler, but he's nothing special. To where he went against Tyron Woodley, a striker in MMA. A good striker, a guy who could fight competitively in boxing. I'm not saying he can win a world championship, but he'd be a decent contender or a gatekeeper. So when you fight that level in your 5th fight, that's a huge step up. Huge step up. And he won the first 4 rounds fairly easily, but then in round 5, he got clipped and was hurt bad. Was it in round 4 or round 5? I'm not sure, but he won the early rounds fairly easily. He didn't look as unbeatable as he did before, obviously, because he's taking a step up in competition. Then Tyron Woodley, he's been gun-shy for his last few fights, even in UFC. He was never that aggressive fighter who would go in there like a Mike Tyson, bobbing and weaving, and try and release those left hooks to the body and come up top with the right hand. No, he was never like that. He would throw 10 to 15 punches around, very slow pace, very timid, and that let Jake Paul off the hook. And I'm not trying to make excuses for Jake Paul, but you go look at that video when he hurt Jake Paul. Jake Paul tripped over Tyron Woodley as well. It wasn't all he was completely wobbled. He was obviously stunned and hurt, but it wasn't as bad as people think it was. Then after that, Tyron Woodley did not capitalize on the moment. Jake Paul took round 6 and 7. Round 8, Jake Paul was just looking to survive. Woodley landed a few shots there, and he won that round. I had it 6-2 for Jake Paul. I don't know why one just had a 5-3 for Tyron Woodley. It was not a fight that could go either way. I thought it was 6 clear rounds for Jake, 2 clear rounds for Tyron. What's going to happen this time around? I think it's going to be more of the same, but I think this time Jake Paul has improved, of course. Jake Paul has been getting himself ready for a pro fighter in Tommy Fury, who has 7 fights, more experience than he does, who was an amateur for a long time, who's been around boxing since he was a kid. So he's prepped himself well for this fight. I think he's going to beat, this time, Tyron Woodley very much more comfortably on points. I don't see Tyron Woodley going to stop. Tyron Woodley is a tough fighter, strong fighter. He's a tough guy. He's not going to go down from Jake Paul, in my opinion. But I think Jake Paul will get the rounds he needs for experience, and he'll win against Tyron Woodley by a decent unanimous decision. I think he could probably win 7 or 8 rounds. I don't think Tyron Woodley is going to even hurt him this time around. And Tyron Woodley is obviously in danger of getting stopped early in the fight, where Jake Paul seems to be a quick starter. He's gotten 3 knockouts. He's had 3 knockouts out of his 4 fights, and all 3 of them came in the first 2 rounds. Yeah, 2 in round 1 and 1 in round 2. So yeah, he as he showed against Nate Robinson, he has power on the back foot, which is highly impressive. Me as a former boxer, fought at the amateur level, have seen pro fighters, been around Jericho Quinn, been around Robert O'Quinn, been around a few pro fighters. I've seen Adonis Stevenson back when in the Crunk Gym. A lot of people don't have that power going on the back foot. I'm not saying you put Jake Paul in that category. Of course not. He's more show than boxing. Obviously, boxing, it's not WWE. It's not fake. Jake Paul could get seriously hurt in there. But he's more like, he gives us a nice show. No one expects Jake Paul to win a championship. No one's out there claiming Jake Paul should go fight Alonga Makabu, because Jake Paul campaigns at cruiserweight. No one's saying that. No one's saying, why doesn't Jake Paul fight Lawrence Okoli? No one's saying that. No one wants him to fight the champs. But he gives us a good show. He can fight guys on his level. I just think if he continues to fight guys on this level, he's going to gain so much more experience than anyone he's fighting against. He's going to be just a couple levels ahead of him. He's going to have to start fighting old boxing champions. Guys like Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And I think Chavez Jr., even with all his disabilities as a boxer, I think he would still beat Jake Paul fairly easily. Now let me know what you guys think in the comments below. My official prediction is Jake Paul unanimous decision over Tyron Woodley. Very comfortable unanimous decision this time around. Let me know what you guys think. You guys give Tyron Woodley more of a chance than I do, because many people think that Tyron Woodley is going to win by knockout, and I just don't see him winning by knockout. Could Tyron Woodley outbox Jake Paul? Because as the judges showed you in the first fight, the judges themselves seems to have a bias against Jake Paul. Jake Paul, they gave him 2 judges had him winning 6-2. Like, they didn't give him any favors for round 8, which you could have gave it to Jake Paul if you wanted to. But one judge had a 5-3 for Tyron Woodley, which I don't understand. What rounds did he give to Tyron Woodley? But Tyron Woodley should be in the mood to outbox him, not to knock him out. Because even the first fight, he was just looking for that one punch. I think you should just go in there, try to touch him up, try to hit him 10 times per round, see what happens. Maybe he gets uncomfortable in there. I know he's being trained by BJ Flores, a former cruiserweight title challenger. He was a journeyman in boxing. He was not a top level fighter, but he's not bad. Like, he obviously knows his fundamentals. He obviously knows how to throw a jab or right hand. He can give him good sparring, but he's not that good of a fighter. But he's around pros, is what I'm trying to say. So maybe he won't be comfortable being pressured. Maybe if Tyron Woodley can go in there and be like, you know what, I'm going to let go of that style, try and counter him with one punch. Let's put that out the way. Let's take a Sean Porter approach. Not the Sean Porter that later fought Ugas, Spence, and Crawford. No, not that Sean Porter. I know that was a better version of Sean Porter, but don't fight sophisticated. Just go in there, guns blazing, like a bull, try to land as many punches as you can on Jake Paul. Don't throw 40 punches. You know what? It's an 8-round fight. You don't need that much stamina for it. Throw 80 punches per round. Just go in there and try to rough Jake Paul up. You might be able to get him out. Jake Paul, what I would advise him to do, just stay on the back foot. You have the height and reach advantage. Try to jab. Pivot. If he does try to ambush you, just pivot out of there. Pivot. I don't think Jake Paul has the experience to do that, because I've been in the gym for hundreds of rounds. Pivoting, maybe when I'm training, when I'm shadowboxing, is easy, but in sparring or in a match, it's much harder to get it going. It needs a lot of practice. When you pivot out of situations, it needs more practice than just doing it in the shadowbox. You just spar it, you need to use it a lot. I can't just tell him in the corner, Jake Paul, you better start pivoting out of those corners. It's not going to work that way. But maybe he's learned, they've worked on that in the gym. He should pivot, he should clinch, he should try to rough up Tyron Woodley if Tyron Woodley tries to do that. But my advice, Tyron Woodley, just try to throw as many punches as possible. Don't look for the knockout. It does not have to be hard punches. Maybe Sean Porter was a bad example. This is going to be even a horrible example, a horrible comparison, because I don't know how Tyron Woodley, a guy in his second pro fight, can do what one of the greatest boxers of all time did. But try to find your inner Joe Calzaghe. Just throw as much punches as possible. It doesn't have to be hard. And try to win a decision. I think Jake Paul, a guy who's never been under serious pressure, If you throw 50 to 100 punches per round, I think you can get him out of there anyways. If you can't, you obviously won the fight. If you throw every round 50 to 100 punches. Because Jake Paul is not going to be able to match that. I'm telling you right now. His stamina is not as good as your stamina. Tyron Woodley seemed like he could fight another 8 rounds. Jake Paul was lucky to get out of there. That's what it seemed like going out to fight. Even though Jake Paul won that fight, going out to fight, you ask yourself, who could go another 8 rounds? You'd probably say Tyron Woodley, not Jake Paul. So you have more stamina than Jake Paul, obviously. Try to outwork him. I'm telling you right now, if you outwork him, the stoppage will come. Don't look for the knockout. I know that's a cliche. That's a boxing cliche, but don't look for the knockout. The knockout will come to you. Just try to rough him up, outwork him, outfight him, outmuscle him. You'll get him in the late rounds. Don't be looking for that one punch. That's a horrible game plan. I don't know why you have that game plan. Just try to outwork him. If you outwork him, you'll get him. Now, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I know many of you guys don't like what's going on in boxing with Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley, Logan Paul. But, I think it's a good thing for boxing. I think it's bringing more eyes on the sport. We've had new fans, and we need it. Boxing needs these new fans. I had so many people, so many of my friends, because I'm only 22 years old, so I got a lot of friends between 18 and 25. A lot of them, the first boxing event they ever watched was the Tyron Woodley versus, the KSI versus Logan Paul fight. And now they become boxing fans. They ordered the pay-per-view for Wilder versus Fury. Both the second one and the third one. They watch Ryan Garcia. They like Gervonta Davis. They know the popular boxers now, they know them. They didn't know them back then. So he bought an eye on the sport. Obviously, they're not hardcore fans like most of us that are on this channel. But they still follow boxing. They still text me, ask me, do you see any bets that I should put on? Any nice fights? Any fight of the year contenders? And I tell them, watch this fight and that fight. Some fights, I don't tell them to watch them. Like Devin Haney versus Jojo Diaz, I did not tell anyone to watch it because I know what type of fight that would be. It would be a boring fight. And in a casual eye, a casual perspective, even though I was highly entertained by Devin Haney versus Jojo Diaz, but I did tell them to go watch Gervonta Davis versus Isaac Cruz. I know that would be highly entertainment. Because I thought Gervonta Davis would be my knockout, but actually we got more entertainment than we thought we would. In my opinion, I was very happy with the Isaac Cruz versus Gervonta Davis fight. So, I know many of you guys hate what's going on in boxing, but trust me, in the long run, it's good for boxing. Very good for boxing. Now, I don't want to make this video too long. It's already long enough. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Who do you guys have winning, Jake Paul or Tyron Woodley? Like and subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated. But it's not just it would be greatly appreciated. This channel is a very unbiased channel. I try my best to not fan for any fighter, to not have any hidden agendas. So if you like that type of content, like and subscribe. Sadiq Boxing, out!